What was it like meeting your Japanese fiance's parents as a Black woman?
And I'm like, hello, darling. A big hug. And she's standing like,
no!
But the reason being is because obviously the fact that I'm Black, that must have been a shock in itself. But they don't kiss, like they don't hug. And I'm like, she's like, what's going on?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Introspect Club, a club where you can learn a lot about yourself through conversations with other people. My name is Damisse, and I'll be your host. Last week, we had a conversation with an individual who had a very similar experience to the guest that we have on today. We're talking about international travels. People who are getting up and leaving their home to go live in very foreign, very different environments. We're talking about Japan. This week, we have a conversation with a Black woman who picked up, went to Japan, married a Japanese man, had kids, and had quite an interesting experience in the process. And I want to dig into that because I'm a bit of a traveler myself. At least I like to think so, but never have I necessarily picked up as an adult and just moved to a completely different country. I want to learn a little bit about this woman's experience because I think it's something that we can all learn from, especially given that a lot of people don't even really use their passport, let alone even have one. And it's good to have experiences that will allow you to grow, especially if it's a lot different from yours. So without further ado, I want to introduce a very good guest of mine. Everybody, please welcome Liza Chantel. What's up, love?
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for such a lovely intro.
Such a lovely intro. Yes, it is. I love your accent. Your accent is just like so good for like TV and radio. You sound like the navigation system in my car. It's great.
I like that. I could look into that as a new profession.
Please turn left. All right. Give everybody a quick introduction of yourself so they can get to know who you are.
Hi, I'm Liza Chantel. I've studied all over the world, and that is actually what led me to moving to Japan. I actually met my Japanese husband in Shanghai, China. And we went back to London. I had my kids in London and we stayed there for a while. And then with the recent events, we decided to come to Japan because it's a lot safer.
Wow. Oh, wait, a lot safer. So I want you to walk me through that, right? So where are you from originally? Like what's your origin?
So my mom's Jamaican. My dad's actually American, Miami, ex-Air Force.
Okay.
And they met in Oxford. Yeah. So it's a bit of a love story, but they separated. So it wasn't the best love story. But,
it's a novella. It's a novella. It's like one of those.
I've always had that kind of wanderlust. You know, I've always known that there are other countries out there. I've had my passport from an early age. When my parents split up, everyone was like, "Are you sad?" I was like, my dad lives in Miami. I get to go to Disneyland. This is the best thing ever.
It's like your parents are together more. Isn't it great? Like what? It's like, what's the best part about your parents' relationship? I go to Disney. They're split up. But that's okay. I can see that. So your parents, your mom's Jamaican, your dad is from the US in Miami, but you have a UK accent. How did that even come to be?
Yeah, because my mom moved years ago. There was a thing where Jamaica's part of the Commonwealth, and they were like, Jamaicans, come over to the motherland, which is the UK. So everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people from Jamaica ended up going to the UK. And it's so crazy because even on their passports, it said British, because they were considered part of the Commonwealth. They were considered
really
British. Yeah. So it was considered as the motherland. So it was like, let's
It was the
say
motherland
England's
for
like the
Jamaicans.
octopus. Huh?
Jamaicans' motherland is the UK.
I don't want to get into I don't want to get into any trouble with any Rastafarians going, what is she talking about? But I mean, in terms of, let's say England's an octopus and it's got its tentacles everywhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so you feel part of something.
That's, that's colonization for you.
Exactly, colonization. Yeah. So I'm not saying it's your roots. Yeah. I'm not saying it's your inner soul, but I mean, in terms of, it was seen as, okay, the mothership then, the motherboard, something like that. Not your roots or your soul, but this thing. And so literally on their passport, it's a British. And years later, there was a controversy with what's called the Windrush, because a lot of people came on what's called a boat that was called the Windrush. And it's called the Windrush for a generation after them. Although my mum was like, I came on a plane, darling. I came on a plane. But anyway, I was like, look at you. But years later, they said to these people that had fought in the wars, that had driven their buses, you don't count anymore, you have to go back. Because the passports that they came on were British, but they hadn't changed their passports because it's the British. But as the time got on, those passports became invalid. But they never changed it because they saw it as that was their British passport. Yeah. The laws came in and said that passport isn't valid anymore. By the way, you should go back home. So years ago on a passport, you could put you'd be the adult and you could put your kids on the passport, like +1, like a +1.
Yeah.
But they changed that. So there were all these kids that didn't even have a passport because they came on their parents, but their parents' passports weren't valid anymore.
So what did they do?
They were told at 60 years old, oh, you need to go back. So they took their life, they took their pension, they took everything. And they said, oh, by the way, you should go back. So there's a big scandal that's going on now.
So what about the kids? What happened to the kids?
Exactly. Well, the kids are now 60 years old.
The kids are 60.
And now at 60, they're being told, or even older, they're being told to go back.
This is happening right now?
Right now. It was a big scandal maybe 2 years ago. Yeah, it's called the Windrush.
So what's the outcome?
So what they're saying is, no, we've stopped it. But when someone says they stop it, you never know if that's true or not. So who knows? But my mum already had changed her passport because she loves traveling. So she never got caught up in that. But there were a lot of people that did.
Yeah, that's kind of wild.
Right?
So what about the citizens of the UK who had British passports? What about them?
Well, ones that were able to convert, like my mum's, that were able to just get that new British one, they were fine. But there's a whole generation, it's like maybe in the States as well, there's a whole generation of people who don't have a passport necessarily.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. I get it, because it's like, if you're already there, you count yourself as a citizen, so you're not thinking about that. If you're not a traveler, you're not thinking about your passport.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to get mine renewed too, because mine is all.
Get you renewed. Do you even count?
I don't know. Am I even human anymore?
I know, right?
So okay, but right now you're calling in from Japan, which I'm so grateful.
Yeah, Tokyo.
So you live in Tokyo right now, right? So walk me through the journey of like what your reasons were for moving to Japan, and then I need you to tell me like what was the first blatant sets of culture shock that you experienced upon moving to Japan.
Okay, I ended up coming to Japan. Like I said before, I studied in Shanghai. I got a scholarship to study there.
Okay.
And I had a friend, and the reason why it's important, I'll tell you in a minute. So basically, my friend called me up. This was back in the day. Bearing in mind, this was 11 years ago. We had the, fake Nokias that pretended to be Blackberries, like it was just ridiculous.
The what?
I had like a fake, I had a Nokia, it was real, but it was pretending to be a Blackberry. I don't know if anyone ever had those ones.
I don't even know what that is.
It looks like,
what is that?
It could have been a Blackberry. Do you know, you guys know Blackberry?
Oh, Blackberries. Yeah, I know Blackberries. Yeah. What about them?
It was like a Nokia trying to be a Blackberry, but it wasn't quite.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah. So we were still on the, like the Motorola Nokia times. And my friend calls me up, and my gay friend, and the reason why he's gay is going to be important in a minute. And he calls me up and he's like, Liz, do you want to go out? And I'm like, babe, I've got an exam. And he's like, your exam's in Chinese. You're going to fail it. Come out. And I was like, Yeah, to be fair, like to be fair, I could fail it and be miserable. I could go out and know I'm going to fail it, but at least I've had a good time. Priorities, right?
Okay,
So I went.
That's one way to look at it.
I went out with my friend and some other friends, and this guy walks in, and my gay friend is absolutely stunning, and he goes, "Oh, that guy is good looking," and I was like, actually. It's not bad, you know.
He's not bad. He'll do.
And then I was like, oh, no, my friend likes him, but I kind of like him. No. And then he went up to this guy and he was like speaking to him. Uh-huh. And the guy spoke Spanish and my friend speaks Italian, but he also spoke Spanish as well because my friend's one of those polyglots that can speak so many different languages.
Okay.
And so they were speaking Spanish, but bearing in mind this guy looks Asian, right? And he comes over to me and I kind of slid over to him because I saw him go to my friend. No, thank you. No, like.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not into that.
Tried to shoot his shot.
He's like, I might speak a bunch of different languages, not that language.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I kind of slid over, like, well, you know. And then we exchanged numbers, and I found out it transpired that this guy was Japanese in China, which is a bit random, but anyway.
So this is a Japanese man in Shanghai.
In Shanghai.
In Shanghai,
and we were in a salsa bar.
In a what?
Salsa bar.
In a salsa bar, speaking Spanish to a man that spoke Italian, who happened to be
I had to
gay.
Tell this story to my mom,
and you, like, as a bystander watching, who is a black woman who's originally from Jamaica / Miami that lives in the UK. Like, this is a whole confusing party that I'm nauseated by.
I'm confused.
Okay,
right?
So go on.
And so we exchanged numbers. It was really sweet, you know, really kind. And we exchanged numbers. And can you imagine? He didn't call me. And I was like, the cheek of it, the nerve this guy has.
Your accent is killing me. The nerve.
One has. It's absolutely shocking. And my friend, who's also Japanese, was like, no. We're shy people. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a chance. So I sent this text message, you know, on my little wannabe BlackBerry phone. So I sent this text message and it was something easy because this was pre-Google Translate. So I just sent, you know, I like you, like that in English because I didn't know his English level. So
wait, Spanish was great, but English is like whatever.
A language of dance, darling. And so we sent this. So I sent this text message, like, I like you. It didn't go through. So I kept pressing send, like send, unsent. So I'm like, what? And then as soon as I went out of my dormitory and I got better reception, it went send.
No, you look crazy.
I was like, shame it. I was trying to play it cool. But anyway, so he replied and on our first date, we went to a coffee shop and we went to a salsa lesson after. But in the coffee shop, he had this big fat dictionary. Again, remember, it was pre-Google Translate.
Oh.
And he just went, I like you.
No! That's the cutest thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, that's a very long conversation, though, with little said. But all right. Okay.
It's just like the language of love, you know? And we got to the Spanish class, the dance class. And he said in Chinese, and I just started my Chinese lessons. He said in Chinese, you know, this is my girlfriend or friend. And I didn't know which one he said because there's a nuance in it. So I was trying to memorize, what did he say? And then I got back to the dormitory and my friend, who was more advanced in Chinese than me at the time, was like, he said girlfriend. And we were all like, yeah.
This is after your first date, right?
Because I can't explain it, but even 10 years ago or so, people were just kind of more like, I like you or I don't. I can't explain it. It wasn't so
Yeah. There's no ambiguity. There's no ambiguity.
Yeah.
Was that you think that was a reflection of the times, or was that a reflection of miscommunication, or was that a reflection of his particular culture?
I think it was a reflection of the times. Like, remember, you didn't have Tinder, you didn't have all these things. So if you saw someone and you liked them, of course it's not with everyone, but it was just, do you know what I mean? Like, I got you. Like,
you're not bombarded with so many options that you're constantly like juggling. So people are like, I like this one now, so what else is there to say? You know what I
mean? Exactly. Remember, there was no like, how can I put it? A lot of people still have the screen, like it was just not black and white, but you know what I mean? It was just like texting and you know what I mean? It wasn't like, you know, although I did get a little shady iPhone from a guy down the road.
Oh, really?
Allegedly.
Okay.
But you know, it was back in the day. But what I mean is, it was just a bit purer. Like when someone texted you, it really meant something. Remember, you had to pay for those texts. Like,
back in the day, a text was like 35 cents or something like that. Like, you better love this person because this conversation is gonna cost you $40.
Like we would have, like you have in the UK, we'd have like top up cards. So you'd have to top it up, and you had like let's say $10 and stuff like that if you went on a line rental, because in England we had pay as you go, and we also had line contracts. So if you're on pay as you go, then you really got to like someone
because you got to go and put money in a machine or give someone a certain amount of money in order to talk to a human. That's what now it's just so passive. It's coming out of your bank every month. You're just like, I have all these minutes. I remember the days where like you had to pay monthly, but you got a certain amount of minutes.
Right.
But during the 9 to 5 hours, right? A certain amount of minutes. But then you only had unlimited minutes at night after like 7 or 8 or something like that, depending on what plan you had. So like every love call, every romantic call happened after 7 or 8. Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'd be staying up late at night talking to crushes like, you hang up. No, you hang up. No, you hang up. Oh, wait, I'm running out of minutes. I'll call you in the evening. Just hang up. You know what I mean? Like those days were wild. You know what I mean?
In the UK, it was more brutal because we had like contracts. So I was a T-Mobile girl. Shout out to T-Mobile.
Okay.
And, so we got free calls after 7 if you were on a plan from years ago. Like they tried to change the plan because people were just using too much of it. But if you met someone who was on Orange, which was another mobile phone contractor, you'd be like, I like you, but I
like you, but I don't like you like you. You know what I mean? I don't like you that much. You're an expensive endeavor. Damn, that's an insult. That's how it is, right? That's how it is with like Android and iPhones right now. Like people make fun of people who have like the green text. They're like, wait, I can't even see the 3 dots. I don't even know when you're thinking of me. Like that's weird.
That's true. But there was a bit of discrimination as well, because like on Clubhouse, you could only get on it if you were iPhone. Initially.
Yes,
it was big initially because it took a long time.
Took a long time. Like I would have friends and be like, yo, you should get on Clubhouse. Like, oh, I can't find the app. I'm like, you have an Android? They're like, yeah. I'm like, oh yeah. If people who know. Yeah. So you met your husband just really randomly through your gay friend who was trying to hit on him first, and now you are in a relationship with
Thank you, Tommaso. That's his name.
Tommaso. Thank you, my brother.
Darling. He's got children to my children, actually. So.
He what?
He's the godfather, one of the godfathers to my children.
Got it. Yeah. And where does he live now?
Italy, but I think he's back in Shanghai. He's amazing because he does all the promotion for designer labels. So when I mean promotion, I mean when they have a big event, you know, when you see something and it's got the name and then it's got like, for example, you go to the event and you see the LED lights, you see the champagne and you see the stage and you see He's the event planner for all the designers. So he creates these amazing wonderlands, like literally he'll create an amazing wonderland for the designers to have that exhibition in. It's crazy. He's so talented.
That's what's up. That's what's up. But in regards to your relationship with your, I guess now husband, right?
Yeah.
So he is somebody that is Japanese, was living in Shanghai. That's where you met him. And you at the time were kind of like transient between Shanghai and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I was studying in Shanghai because studying Chinese language.
Okay.
And then after that, we got married. And
how long did it take for you to get married after meeting this stranger?
We got engaged within 11 months.
You got engaged in 11 months.
Darling, I don't doesn't like to brag, but you know.
Wait. So you met this person 11 months prior to your engagement. This person who was a complete stranger that was from another country.
Yeah.
Didn't even speak English or any language that you really spoke. And 11 months later, you guys were engaged. Did he use a dictionary to propose?
No. Hey. That's how we just. But I can't explain it. You know, when you can sit in someone's company and just. How can I explain it? When he would touch my hands, it would be electric because.
Okay.
We didn't have that language connection, and I think it's I feel like we've become desensitized as we've gone along, especially maybe with technology and iPhones and so on and so forth, because we've just we tend to lose that kind of, you know, you just get kind of like the intangible.
Yeah, here's what I think it is. Let me see if I can put it into words for you. All right, you know how like there's this, I don't know if it's a theory, but there's this notion of like if someone is blind. Right,
the senses get heightened.
Yeah, all the other senses get heightened because it's like a not a defense mechanism, but it's like a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
Right. So in order for you to be more alert and more aware or whatever, just like if you lose your hearing, then you have to make sure you can see, you can read lips, see visual cues, sense of smell, and things like that. So I think if you're in a relationship with someone that doesn't speak your language, you will tend to pay attention to the non-verbals more because that's your only route.
Exactly.
Right? But because you don't hear the verbal, which is a common language, you're probably not tainted by all the other verbal toxicity or distractions. You're just focused on physical touch, you know, someone's smell, just them being there and being present, because some people, they can get away with shooting a text or getting on a phone call. They're like, oh, I spoke to you already, or I text you already. Versus like if you don't even have that, now you're like, okay, I'm gonna go there and be with you. I'm gonna hold your hand. Yeah. I'm gonna do things with you, and it's more intentional because you're losing a piece of what was normal for somebody else. I think that's what you're trying to say.
That's beautiful. You said it perfectly.
I'm a whole poet over here. You know what I mean? It's what I do. You know what I'm saying?
And it's exactly that. You get hyped up for them to try a new ice cream or something like that.
Exactly.
You know, we went to so many different places. There's a book called IQ84 or 1Q84, and it's by a Japanese author called Murakami, and it's really intense, it's really complicated, it's kind of fantasy fiction, but he couldn't explain that book to me, so he just hunted down the book. It's a Japanese book, but he hunted down the translation in English for me, and that's so beautiful compared to someone going, oh, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. He let me experience it. So for me, such to reminisce. So for me, reminisce. So for me, it was really intense because it was about a feeling also, and then people would be like, he just wants his papers. I'm like, darling, he's Japanese. Do you know the Japanese have the #1 passport in the world now? I want my papers. No,
oh, that was a joke. I didn't know that. But but they were saying he wants his papers to which country though? Because you were kind of bouncing around.
London, darling, London, UK.
Oh, got it. I don't know. You're like a nomad out here.
Yeah, because they couldn't understand why this guy would be interested in me. They were like, it has to be for something.
Why wouldn't you understand it? Why didn't you think?
Not me. I'm talking about other people.
Oh, they didn't understand why they were interested in you.
they assumed it must be something sinister, or it must be something strange, or it must be something untoward, because they were like, now with K-pop and J-pop and all these things, it's, you know what, I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit bitter. And the reason why I'm bitter, darling, is because 11 years ago, I was getting it. But that sounds wrong. I was going to say getting it.
Wait, what does that mean? You were getting what, Liza?
I'd blush if I could. No, I was really going for it because people are like, an Asian guy, that's disgusting. Da, 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 da. And now because of J-pop and K-pop, those same girls are like, oh my gosh, Asian guys are so cool. They're so sexy. I'm so interested. And I'm like, no.
In which country are they saying this?
It's all over the world. Do you not know there's like a big Asian male black women, like, I can't say revival.
Not in the United States, not that I'm seeing.
Yeah, no, there is. Once you've got a Japanese husband, you find these little, maybe you could say subcultures. Yeah, it's a big thing now because you have to look at like BTS and K-pop and J-pop, and now everyone's more willing to be open-minded to other cultures, and everyone's always had an affinity to Japan, I feel. You know, like Japan's always had that little bit of cool that everyone's been interested in. And there's always been a subculture of people who've always been interested in it, but they couldn't say they were because at that time it wasn't seen as cool. But now it's become so cool, it's almost hipster. And it's a shame because those people who are originally interested in it are now being put under like a hipster label. And
got it.
But they had a genuine love for it.
I haven't personally like witnessed that type of like, you know, like attraction to that culture, like here in the United States, like in the way that you describe. But maybe I need to pay more attention. I don't know. Maybe, but that's not like there's a statistic right now about like, cause right now with dating apps and all the other forms of like getting information, there's a statistic that shows who are the least attractive people in the dating pool, and because you can put like your origins and demographic, age, and where you're from on a lot of these apps, they can see the algorithm of like who gets swiped right or left on the most, right? And for men, the least were Asian men, right? And for women, it was black women. Yeah. Right? They were the least attractive according to the polls and the statistics of how things get swiped on. So I don't know if that's necessarily changed, but this was a recent
I heard about that statistic. Yeah, and it's
I don't know if that's United States. I don't know if that's United States. It has to be.
No. I've heard of that as well. Yeah, I've heard of that as well, and it's wild. But yeah, if you look under, I'll give you a tip: AMBW, which is Asian male black woman.
Okay.
Then you'll find, a lot. Even if you look it up in Facebook or something like that, you'll find a lot of. Even think back in the day when maybe it was Romeo. Remember the film Romeo Must Die?
Yeah.
It was absolutely stunning, Aaliyah.
And
Jet Li, and maybe it might have sparked up a little something in some people.
Oh my God! Nobody's thinking about that movie. Okay, that movie was I barely remember that movie. Okay, but it was a good movie though. I'm not gonna lie, it was a good movie, but it's definitely a cultural.
They kissed in the end, but the what is it? What's the experimental audience? I've forgotten what that word is. You know, when they put it in front of a preview audience. Let's say the preview audience.
Like a premiere, like a pre-release or something like that.
Yeah. That audience said it was unrealistic or something like that. So they took the kiss out and made them just like hug or whatever they did. But they actually did kiss. That's a little story.
Oh, really?
It's true. Yeah, but they said it didn't poll well, so they took it out. But yeah, so now you've got you're familiar with BTS, the Korean super
When you
group.
say BTS, I'm gonna be honest with you, it sounds like a category of porn. I don't know why. Yo, you into? Because I'm thinking of BDSM. You're like, are you into BTS? Like what?
I know, it's the first thing that comes off the top of your head. Like, have you seen the stuff from Japan, darling?
Have I what?
They're connoisseurs, allegedly.
Well, that's the thing. In Japan, there's a lot of porn.
It's pixelated.
I'm not even talking about that. Like, there's a lot of like animated porn that exists in Japan, and there's also like, I went to a Halloween party in Japan once, and
did you?
Yeah,
What part?
I don't. This is in Tokyo, right? I went to
Shibuya.
huh?
Probably Shibuya. Everything good happens in Shibuya.
I have no idea, but I was in Japan, and it happened to be around Halloween time, and we went to this Halloween party, and I just had like a little, Batman thing, nothing too crazy, right? But the people at this party, they had very eccentric costumes that were like movie CGI quality costumes, but most of the party was built around like sexuality and BDSM. It was crazy. I was not prepared, and there was a lot of people like with straps and like guys walking around. With,
they've got there's this
pasties on women and things like that. It was wild, and I'm like, this is Japan. And when you walk out of the party, everybody's so conservative and like shy, but you go to this party, it's just like, you guys are some freaks.
But that's why, my love. That's why, because it's like the polar opposites, and they've got this really beautiful art form where it's like bondage, but they do it with the ropes, and I've forgotten the name of it. But they were
doing that at the party. Yeah, they were doing that at the party. I have footage of where they were tying up these like, this woman was tying up this other woman, and like the rope was like very particularly done, and she was tied up kind of like super submissive, and then the other woman was kind of like feeding her something, and then feeding some people into the crowd, obviously before COVID, you know what I mean? Yeah. And things like that was going on, and I was just like confused, because this was towards the tail end of the trip. So throughout the entire experience being in Japan, I was seeing like all these cultural things, all these traditional things, these kimonos, going to these temples, and then everyone's respectful and very quiet and shy. And then I go to this party, I'm like, who are y'all? Like, I'm so confused. So I don't know if this is what the BTS is, or like, I don't know if I Google it, I'm gonna have to clear my cookies on my laptop. I have no idea what you're asking me to do right now.
No, BTS is a Korean super group. Think of the Beatles.
Okay.
Yeah, like, because people get that wound up and that hysterical about BTS.
Okay.
Shout out to ARMY. When you get into BTS, you'll understand who ARMY are. And you must never upset ARMY. So I'm never going to upset ARMY. I love you, ARMY. And ARMY is their fan club, but their fan club is really hardcore. They go hard for BTS.
Okay.
So, but the funny thing is, there's a high percentage of black girls in the BTS ARMY. So
really?
it's kind of, I can't explain it. It's
black girls from where though?
From America. I'm being honest. From America.
I gotta Google this, because
when you go down that rabbit hole, you'll be so surprised.
All right, I'm gonna learn something today. That's good.
Yeah.
But you joined the fan club. All right. So there's that. So now that you got engaged to this Japanese man who you met in Shanghai, so what happens next, right? You guys are married. Got married where?
We actually came back to Japan to get married.
So let's talk about that for a second. So you got married in Japan. I imagine there was a process in having to meet his family and vice versa.
That was wild, because I said to the fella, and I want to clarify, I never knew my husband would be Japanese at all in my life. When you grow up in Northwest London, North Wheezy, as we like to call it.
North Wheezy.
North Wheezy, shout out to the North Wheezians.
Hey.
I've got to give love to my hometown. When you grow up in Northwest London, that's the furthest. Put it this way, there's so few what you guys call Asian people in England that our Asians are different. Our Asians, of course, it still belongs to Asia, but our Asians, when we say Asian people, we mean people from Bangladesh, Pakistan, and India, and so on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't know why. And so for that reason, I've just realised I've been talking to you, and the zip on my dress is wide open. So,
I told you, it's this type of show. You said BTS and zippers start flying open.
And so, how can I explain it? And the nearest proximity we had to what you guys call Asian people were the Filipinos and Filipinas, who were always the cool ones. Like they'd have their heads shaved like the guys, little diamond earring. They were like the cool Asians, you know what I mean? You know, but I'd never known anyone who was Japanese. So I always thought my husband would be like Idris Elba or someone like that.
Oh my God. Here we go.
No.
Idris. She's saying you still have a shot. That's what she's saying.
No, but I was never this person who was like, you know, I'm looking over here because I was looking over here. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was only when I started to travel that I realized that, okay, there's other people out there. And even with my husband, the idea of having a black girlfriend was something he never thought of in his life. Now, that's not to say there aren't a lot of Japanese who were so into reggae music. In fact, Japan is the #1 importer of reggae music.
Really?
So there are a lot of people in Japan who have this strong culture of, it's always with respect, but they're really into black culture. But it's always done respectfully. They don't do it to just do it. Like
it's not like appropriation. It's not appropriation. It's appreciation.
Deep appreciation. Like they'll go into the history of a song and and who remixed it and like you'll just sit there and you'll be like, wow, like your level of appreciation of it is just staggering. So he never thought that his girlfriend would be black either, but darling, you know, once he saw this.
Come on. All of this.
And once he saw all of this, he was just spellbound, darling, spellbound. But yes, it wasn't something that I expected either. And I think that's nice because it wasn't like, if I'm honest, it wasn't like a fetish thing. Whereas what I've noticed now is sometimes when there are people who are really into Japanese culture, they just want someone who's Japanese, or they want someone who's this, or they want someone who's that. And they
check
forget
off
about
a box.
the person. And they forget about who the person is because they're interested in that culture. Whereas I did it the reverse because I actually feel quite bad because my sister's really, I think I got it from her. My sister's really into Asian culture, and she has just like the most beautiful room, and it's full of like swords and artifacts and books and history, and she's so learned.
I got a Japanese sword too.
I do. Get you.
Grab that for me.
Where did you get it from?
I got it from Japan.
No, I mean, like, how did you acquire this Japanese sword? Like, what is the story?
I don't know. Let me see. Hold on. Let me grab this thing. See, look. This is my thing here.
Oh, that's a nice one. Oh, the fire blade. Yeah, that's nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I got this in
you see that? You see the ridges?
What ridges? These?
Really, no, when you open it.
Yeah.
Okay, those were done in the fire. It's beautiful. Can you see it? It looks like flames, doesn't it? Yeah. It was done in the fire. It's beautiful. Yeah, I like the way you consider it.
It was a struggle. It was a struggle getting this through customs.
How do you get it through customs?
Well, you have to have a certificate, and then you have to check it in. You can't bring it onto the plane, right? So it definitely, I don't know. It was one of my favorite like things to bring back from another country. I usually go to countries and collect like different bracelets.
Yeah.
So that way, when I wear these bracelets and then I'm out, people are like, "Oh, that's a nice bracelet. Where'd you get that?" I'm like, "Oh, I got this one in South America."
Have you ever been to England?
I've never been to the UK, believe it or not. And I'll be honest with you, it's not at the top of my list. And it's not because, hold on, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I offended your heritage. It's not on the top of my list. Here's why it's not on the top of my list. I want to get back to the topic of you and your husband in a minute. But the reason why it's not on the top of my list is like, I like to travel to places that kind of challenge me in a lot of ways. And one way is also language, right? So I don't want to go to a place where I don't feel that uncomfortable.
No.
What do you mean?
You
No.
know why? Because the dialects in London are so complicated and so different from what most people think of the English language that you'll go over there and you'll be like, don't know what's going on, love. Like, you'll be baffled.
I got you.
Yeah.
But it's not even just, okay. There's a difference between going to the UK and just like misunderstanding the dialect and then going to Japan and feel like you're on a different planet.
Totally, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that the UK is just like the United States. In no way am I saying that. I'm just saying dollar for dollar, if I spent money on flights going to another country.
Want somewhere that's
I want someplace that's like, I want to go to a country in Africa. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
When I went to Austria, that was a whole different experience. One of the most beautiful countries I've ever seen.
It is.
Well, I went to Vienna. At the very least, the city was beautiful in Austria. So that's the kind of traveling that I like doing in order for me to feel like I have this culture shock. So when I come back to the United States, I can tell them like, yo, do you know that they do this, they do that? In the UK, this is just my speculation. I think there's a lot of westernization that happens between the UK and the United States, and there's like a shared things and interests and stuff like that I might not get that polarization as much. That's my opinion. I might be wrong.
You have to come. Our economy needs you. I'm going to be the ambassador. Come over. Bring your dollars.
Oh, so you're saying UK needs my green card. Got it. That's good. That's good to know. It's good to know. So let's go back to...
Actually, are we higher in the rankings? I'm not sure. We might be, actually. Or do you know what? I think the UK and America slipped to 5th place.
In
Japan's number 1 in the passport rankings. And England and America 5th place because they do it on what countries don't need a visa to get into. Does that make sense? They do it on how many countries will let you just come in, and we slipped down to 5.
Listen. All we care about in America is where the celebrities are. That's how we became popular. Anyway, it's about the movies and the pop culture. That's our influence. So walk with me through the journey of getting married to a Japanese man that you met in Shanghai, China, right? So what was it like meeting your Japanese fiance's parents as a Black woman?
It was hilarious because I said, take a picture because you've got to understand over there in Japan, they're not like touchy-feely, huggy, whatever. They don't tend to talk that much either when it comes to their parents because there's a big kind of like you're not their friend, no one's going to turn around and be like, oi, Karen, I want a cup of tea. There's no kind of, it's your mother. There's no. So I said, take a picture. Of course he didn't show the picture because that would be too easy, isn't it? So
what do you mean too easy? What do you mean too easy?
Because...
Oh, you mean to send them a picture of you?
No, because when he was going to see his parents, I said, take a picture of me. I gave him literally a nice picture of me to show his parents to kind of soften the blow gently, Okay. But for whatever reason, he decides he's not going to show the picture because also I can't explain it. They're the kind of people that are like, it's kind of like waiting for the moment, and he just let the moment pass. So there's no moment where he showed them the picture.
Got it.
So I was like, okay, great. But brings me over. And I think his mum knew he would marry a foreigner because he lived in Spain and he studied in Spain. And he always had leanings towards, like Western culture. So I don't think his mum was too surprised.
But
then I come in, and I come in and I'm like,
I'm at the edge of my seat right now. This is going to be great.
And then I see her and I'm like, hello, darling. A big hug. And she's telling me like, no. But the reason being is because obviously the fact that I'm Black, that must have been a shock in itself. But they don't kiss, like they don't hug. And I'm like, she's like, what's going on? And now she knows it's going to happen. So she's like, I'm ready. And now she gives me a little hug and I'm like, but his parents are beautiful. But then there's this thing where you never know, because in Japan they put a mask on.
Who puts a mask on?
So, not a real mask, like
figurative one.
A figurative mask, because you don't want to make someone feel uncomfortable. Everything here is not about you, it's about them. It's not about you as a person, it's about everyone else.
It's about the collective.
Exactly. So like the Borg, if you're into Star Trek, anyway. So if you look at the name is more important. The family name is more important than your name. So when I introduce myself, it's always with my what we call the surname. You know, your surname, and your name doesn't even count because your parents gave you that. That's got no meaning. Where is your heritage? Where is your lineage? Where is your line from?
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So because it's a culture of where are your peoples from? What did they do? What are they about? And you last, that's how you move forward in the world.
Yeah.
So you always respect people more, not more than you respect yourself, but do you see what I mean? When I meet people in the morning, you don't bow like this, but Ohayo gozaimasu, which is good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu. Like you do the head nod. Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So you do a head nod and you'll because it's respectful.
Yeah.
So what I mean is that even if they didn't like me, they wouldn't have shown it. I mean, they could have shown it, but it's not the culture to just be like, he's just random. You just put in the house.
Yeah, but let me ask you a question. Did they show any signs of not? Did your Japanese husband's parents at any point show any signs of disinterest towards you, even if they were the most subtle?
No.
Okay.
But I knew they were very nervous because it was a big shock. And I took the eldest son, which if you know anything about Asian culture, so I'm not under any illusion that they didn't have an inner turmoil, but they never treated me badly. Does that make sense?
Got it.
So they never showed me any bad way. They showed me love. They showed me kindness. And they showed me compassion because they knew I was someone else. Again, this going back into how you treat others, they knew I was someone else's daughter. Do you know what I mean? So it always came from I was someone else's daughter, so they have to treat me well. Rather than,
like
so I don't want anyone watching this going, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's delusional. I'm not saying that they didn't have their inner struggles. That would be foolish, but they never showed it. Nah, my family.
Oh, so what was it like introducing your Japanese husband or fiance to your Jamaican or Black American family?
So my mom was what we call made up in the UK, was she was so ecstatic. She always wanted a son. Okay. So she was like, my son. And she took him to bingo. She took him everywhere. Like we went out all the time. Like she was like, my son, because she always wanted a son. And my husband is very, very, you've got to realize I didn't just say, okay, this guy's interested in me. I want to be with him. End of story. When I met him, I'd always wanted someone who was kind, someone who spoke, actually, funnily enough, another language, someone who really liked kids, someone who loved their mum. That was important for me because how they love their mother would be a reflection of how they treat women.
Got it.
All these things, well-read, fun, likes to travel. All these things he is, I just didn't know it was going to be in a Japanese package. So it's all these things that I was like, God, da, 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 da. But I just didn't, I was like, that packaging, okay, it's a nice packaging. I'm shallow, I got to admit it, like I'm shallow, but it's a nice packaging. But I didn't know it was going to be in a Japanese package. Does that make sense?
I gotcha.
So
how did your family, how did your family respond to him?
So it was important that I had someone who was decent for my mum as well, because I'm bringing another person into the family. It had to be a decent person, and my mum adores my husband. What
about your dad?
Now my dad, he's American Air Force, and he always mixes up Japan and China, and he's same da, da, da. And the first thing he said to me was, does he gamble?
What does that mean?
And I was like, what? And because that was his stereotype, that people who were Asian gambled. And I was like, no, he doesn't. But this is
never heard that.
I never heard of that. And so he was very nice to him, but off. And then he was just off with us, like, it was just such an up-down relationship. Because I'm in my little bubble, I've got the acceptance from the Japanese family. I'm just like, yeah, checkpoint cleared. My mum's made up. She's got her new son, her number one son that she calls him. She's made up. She takes him down the bingo. Great. And I'm thinking, oh, all's good, all's good. And then my dad is just like acting like everything's okay. At the minute, we left because we went over there on holiday to Miami for a Christmas, the exact Christmas that we got engaged, actually. And we came back and it was just up, down, up, down. It was just, and it was just.
What does that mean? Up, down. What does up, down mean?
He just wasn't impressed. He was just like, oh, I didn't want. He never actually told me. It was always through the grapevine. And that was more annoying. If he just come out and said, what did you hear?
What did you hear through the grapevine?
That he just wasn't impressed that I married someone who was of a different culture.
Was it of a different culture, or was it the fact that it was that particular culture?
No, well, this is where it gets interesting, because Japan's always had quite a high standing in terms of respect. Do you know what I mean? I think the culture is very similar to my dad's mentality. They're very, how can I put it, sensible and straightforward, and you know what I mean? So it kind of plays into his personality, but he just didn't like the idea that it wasn't a black guy, to be honest, or it wasn't someone that he felt he could relate to. Got it.
And I can imagine, there are people in the world who are so accustomed to one thing that anything that seems like other seems like a disruption. Because like, I remember I was speaking with, who was I speaking to? I was speaking with a friend of the family.
Yeah.
And, my family's always pressing me for like, oh, when are you going to get married? When are you going to do this? Da, 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 da. I'm just like, all right, relax. Right. But then like, there's this one particular woman, she's pretty much family, but she said, who are you in a relationship with? Like, is the person Haitian? Because if she's not, I don't want to have to explain the food. I'm like, what? Like, your priorities is all fucked up. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, don't get it twisted. My family, like, they've seen me in relationships with a bunch of people that aren't, I don't want to say a bunch of people like I'm out here in a bunch of relationships, but you get the point. Well, they see me in relationships with people that are not like Haitian, right? And they're perfectly fine. But at the same time, I can see that it would be easier for them to have like conversations from a place of understanding rather than try to actually like work to discover. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I thought that was interesting. So yeah, so your dad was not immediately approving.
Also, he's very patriotic, so it's a bit weird. But you know how men are; they can do their little dabbling. They can do their little dabble, like go with anyone. But he's very patriotic, and I think the fact that it was Japan, it's kind of like a bit Pearl Harbor-y. Do you know what I mean? Like,
really?
It wasn't. No, do you know what I mean?
I got you.
It's as most. I don't even know if I'm saying what I'm saying correctly, but do you get what I mean?
No, I know what you mean. Like, because your dad's from the military, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of like
your dad's from the military. So he's patriotic. It's not patriarchal. It's patriotic.
Very.
Got it.
And of course, there's a nuance in the patriot in being, like having this allegiance, because obviously that's not to say there aren't troubles over there and there's situations over there, but when you boil it down, at the end of the day, if you're American, you're American, end of story. You know what I mean? When it comes to your child's dating someone that, to be fair, I'm not naive in that, but it just upset me. It was just like, just be happy for me, just this person's treating me right. I can't it was just, that frustrated me a lot, because I'm like, are you there?
I'm listening.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't know if it had frozen.
No.
Because, and also with that lady, you should be like, well, come on, love. Like, for me, where's your Idris Elba? Like, you don't want me to be with him, but you're giving me any material to work with. No.
Yeah.
Give me some material to work with before you get annoyed. At least with like the Indian families, they give their kids some material to work with. They're like, here's a nice girl.
Yeah.
Hello, nothing to work with, and you're getting upset. That's not fair.
So what about other family members aside from your dad? Like, how did they receive your Japanese husband?
Again, 11 years ago, it was just so weird for a black girl to be with a Japanese guy. It was so weird. So everyone was just like, "Nah, fam, this is weird."
Really? So they were kind of dismissive of the fact that you were with
But then when they met him, they were like, I get it. It just clicked because he's such a like bubbly, open-hearted, like fun, funny. He's not like this stereotypical, and there's nothing wrong with that because I'm a geek myself, but he's not like the stereotypical geeky Japanese guy that you might imagine. And again, I want to clarify,
he dances salsa and things like that.
Yeah, he's
dates black women. He's got to have some edge.
And I just want to, whilst we're here, I just want to say that rumor about that, I didn't even know it existed until someone told me. Like, that ain't true. That's not true.
Hold on. The rumor about what? What rumor are you addressing here?
Well, people, they always ask me, is it? And I'm like, honestly,
I need clarification. We're not speaking in code here. What is the rumor that you feel should be debunked about Asian men?
I feel that the rumor about Asian men that should be debunked is that there's nothing happening down there, because there's a lot happening down there.
So you're saying,
I was like, why do you think it was 11 months to marriage?
so your Japanese husband was hung or is hung?
Let's just say, like, you see my smile? Do you see the smile? I haven't stopped smiling the whole interview, right?
So ladies, the rumor mill is in. Some Japanese men, they can take care of business down there. So, you know what I'm saying? They some freaks, apparently. I've been to Japan, so I've seen.
Thank you.
But it's kind of, all right. So here's another thing I want to get into, right? So in Japan, there's been this conversation about how people are not really that sexual. They're not that affectionate. Go ahead.
But then I think it also, but that's not true. But I think one of the things that people aren't picking up on is it goes both ways, because a lot of foreign men, and I'm not saying this is everyone, I really want to clarify, when I talk in generalizations. I'm not saying it's everyone, and I'm not saying it applies to everyone. But again, with the women, what happens, a lot of men will get upset because after they get married, there's this mask that comes on, and it's like, I can't do certain things with my wife. And then the wife is like, I can't do certain things with my husband because you're mummy now. Do you know what I mean? So it's all about roles. But my husband don't play that game. He's like,
damn that. I'm treating you like I just met you, and right. I'm doing the nastiest to you, my love. Allegedly, yeah. Okay. Allegedly, she says.
Allegedly.
He's probably in the other room right now. Can she finish with this podcast already?
Yeah, we're supposed to have a bath together, actually.
Oh, this thing just got real.
But I'll let you guys in. I'll let you guys in on a little secret.
Okay.
Often we'll put the kids in. Kids will be in childcare, and if he's got a day off work, we might go to a nice love hotel together and just have a little bit of romance, and then pick the kids up. So. Yeah, like like a midweek romance. You got to keep the passion.
The passion.
You got to keep it. The passion. Le passion.
Oui, mademoiselle.
But that's what you have to do. But going back to the other side is, so a lot of, I love a bit of a Google or DuckDuckGo, and if you look it up, you'll find that a lot of foreign men get upset because they think, oh, I've got this sexy Asian girl, and then after they have 2 kids, because you normally should have 2.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, like the boy and the girl. I'm not saying that's always what happens, but I'm just saying, that's often what's preferred, and then after that, she shut the shop.
Why? So you're saying Asian women specifically?
Not all.
But the stereotype is the stereotype, or in general, the expectation culturally is that Asian women in that culture will shut down sexually after having 2 kids.
Yeah.
Really?
And if you look on forums, there's that evidence to back me up. But again, I don't want to say that that's everyone, but that's a common phenomenon. If you talk to a lot of men and they get upset, and then you go on some threads, and some men haven't had it for like 10 years or so, because I don't know where it evaporates to, but it just kind of evaporates. Because maybe it's to do with a lot of, over here, you in their mindset, clicks. So I'm the I'm the student, click. Then I'm the husband, click. Then I'm the wife, click. And I'm the girlfriend, click. And it clicks into these gears.
Yeah.
And and a lot of men do this thing, but this is not just in the Asian culture. Funny story, but I used to work on doors. I know I don't look like a bouncer, but I used to be that annoying guest list girl who would say, if your name's not down, you're not getting in. So I would speak to a lot of bouncers, and I had to get the bouncer license as well, which is quite funny. But I speak to a lot of bouncers, and there'd be these big burly guys, and like these big burly Russian guys or whatever, and they'd be like, they do what they do, but they can't do it with their wives because that's the mother of their kids.
They do what? What do you mean they do what they do? What do they do?
They might want to do like heads down, hands up. I don't know, whatever you want to do.
Wait, hold on. I'm confused. Are you saying these bouncers that you were working alongside with?
Yeah.
A lot of them were married.
Yeah.
They were married, but there were things that they wanted to do or that they did do with other women that they couldn't do with their wives.
Their wife, because that was the mother of their kids. Like you might not necessarily.
But is that what they were saying to themselves, or that's the response they were getting from their wives?
No, that's what. Sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. That's what they were saying to themselves. They were I don't want to defile my wife in this way. It's not always just the Asian culture. It's like different, and these were bouncers from all over the world, and in different cultures they're like their wife they don't want to get too dirty with.
There's something that I learned. There's a phrase for it or a term for it. It's called the Madonna horror complex.
That's interesting.
Look it up. So it's basically the concept of the very thing you just mentioned, is that like a lot of times men will get into relationships and they will be married and they'll have a certain view of their partner, which they'll see as like, the caretaker of the household, the kids, and the partner, the person that helps them do the taxes, but they don't, but you don't visualize them as like this sexual object that you still want, because it's like incongruent, right? Especially if your partner is as nurturing as like your mother, you know what I mean? And it kind of screws up with their mind. But then you see a stranger in a nice like kinky outfit, you're like, I don't have to see you in that other aspect of life. So there's like this anonymity of like, let's just do this crazy thing, and I don't have to worry about if you're the very same person that's buying the groceries. You know what I mean? So that's the complex. But you're saying you don't have that. You like, when the kids are gone, like we out here, we freaking.
Because it's like love energy, isn't it? You got to keep it spicy, and he's the same way. That's an interesting fact you said about the Asian women. But let me ask you a question. I don't want to be quoted on that in case everyone's like, she said it's not true. But
listen,
you can look it up.
You live in Japan. You have every right to speak on the culture as anybody else who's like originally from Japan. You spend more time there than any of us who are probably listening to this show, so we're gonna take your word for it. But with that said, give me that. So when you moved to Japan, right? Because you live in Japan now, right? When you moved to Japan, give me an idea of some of the biggest culture shocks you experienced.
The biggest culture shock was the racism. Oh my gosh, it was so deliciously clever, and what I mean by this, it was just so genius.
Really?
So for example, I was at the crossing the road, and this was before the Rona. And so not everyone in Japan, they've always had masks on if they sneeze, not because they don't want to give it to other people, they find it rude. So some people have masks on even before Rona, but not everyone did. So there was this stunning, she was very, very pretty, I'm going to be honest, woman, like young lady. And she was the kids. I've got twins, and they were in this like really cool, like they call it a baby car, which is so cute. It's a pram, a stroller, but in Japan they call it a baby car. So the kids are in the baby car, the stroller, and it's like one on the top and one on the bottom kind of thing. So you can see they're twins. And she was like, oh, like talking. And at that time, I couldn't understand what she was saying. But I was going by the fact that she looked cute. And oh, so kawaii, man. But I was thinking she was saying that, oh, they were cute, but she wasn't. Anyway.
What did she say?
And she was like, so in Japanese, there's kawaii and kawaii. And kawaii means cute and kawaii is strange. But she was going up. So she was going, oh, kawaii. But she was saying it high, so it sounded cute. Like it sounded sweet. You don't think it's offensive. And then what she did is she started to count the kids, but she counted them like they were animals, because there's different ways to count animals and humans. Do you see? So she's still doing it in that uptone. She's got this beautiful face. I'm not going to like lie about that, even though I want to. And then she's going uptone. So I'm there going, oh, thank you kind of thing. And my husband's jaw, you know when men do that twitchy jaw thing? And he's just holding on. And I know he's going to pop off, because he doesn't normally pop off. He's very, when something's very principled, you know, they're very calm, you know. But, and I see the jaw twitching, and he was just going like that. And I was like, oh, it's, you know. And then he told me what happened, and I started to cry because I couldn't believe that I'd been caught in this trap, you know, or thinking that this was a nice. She looked at me, she smiled, and then she's calling my kids dogs, basically, you know. You know, the way she's counting them, because she's counting them like they're animals, she doesn't count them like they're humans. So that's the kind of racism. There was another one where someone asked me my blood type, and I was like, I don't know what my blood type is. People in England don't know. Like, it's not normal. But in Japan, blood type is like star sign. So she was like, what blood type are you? And I was like, I don't know. So she was like, I think you're let's say XYZ, whatever. And I'm like all gassed up, like, really? You think I'm this? And she was like, totally. And I was pure gassed. I was like, oh my God, she thinks I'm this blood type. Oh my God. And then when I Googled it, it was like, you know, like all the manga villains, like all the most of the villains and most of the bad people are this blood type.
Oh, shit.
So that's clever. That's the kind of thing that you get here. It's not direct. It's like, you know, when you're like, what? Someone cusses you, but you're like, thank you, I think. And then it's only when you do your research that you're like, oh my gosh, I just got cussed out. And I didn't even realize it happened. So that's, I'm not saying that there isn't the very overt stuff, but there's a lot of the very, very clever one, you know, or, you know, like stuff like that. And I think that's a lot harder, because you can't explain it to someone. Because if I said to someone, oh, she asked me my blood type, people would be like, and so? You know, the nuance is not there, like, unless you're there. If I say to someone, she counted my kids, I'd be like, yeah, you've got twins, of course. Why are you being silly? You know? And then you have to really go deep and explain, actually. I get it. And they'll be like, what, that pretty girl over there with the cute boys? Couldn't be, you know? That's what I find difficult about the racism here. What I find interesting for my kids is that they really like police cars. And the police will wave at my kids, and they'll put the lights on for my kids, and they'll be so sweet to my kids. So that's also it's something that I kind of wanted for them to have that childhood. Okay. But at the same time, it feels strange within myself. Does that make sense?
Hey, so explain. For example, what do you mean?
So, for example, even in the UK, we still have our tensions also with the police. You know what I mean? You know, people say, if you haven't done anything wrong, but just coming from the Black community, you know, we have our stop and searches as well. You know, we don't have guns or anything like that in England, which must seem really strange, but we will still be a target. Like, as soon as my cousins learnt to drive, we were like, you've become a man, you're going to have your first stop and search soon. It was that kind of dark humor.
I've been stopped and searched before.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's a right. That's what I meant with the my cousin. It's like a rite of passage if you're a black boy.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're gonna get. That's why we were like, you're gonna be a man soon, like teasing him.
Yeah.
You know, and once I actually got stopped and searched, right? And they were like, and they put down what I wrote, and I'm like, the boots are Prada, darling, Prada. Make sure you write Prada on the, because they have to write down what you were wearing. I was like, make sure you write Prada on that description. I was so annoyed, but I just was like, oh.
Okay.
And because we get not everyone, but I got a paper. When I got stopped and searched, I got a piece of paper. And it said what the person looked like, what they were wearing.
Yeah.
Like a receipt. Yeah. Prada boots, darling. Prada
so how
boots,
how does that affect, like, how does that reflect your kids in interactions with the police in Japan?
Because it doesn't affect their interactions with police. They adore police. You know, it's time they're boys. They're like police cars. They're like ambulances. Like even Gamishishisha, which is the garbage truck.
Yeah.
Like the fascination with like automobiles. And then the police, when they see my kids, they'll put the little flashes on to like flash, you know, like to acknowledge that they've seen little kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they've got the motorbike police, and they'll give a little wave, you know what I mean? And it just, for me, it's something beautiful, but also something bizarre. It's beautiful.
Does it feel triggering to you when the police are interacting with your kids? It
feels a little bit like almost sad, because I also am not naive. I know there's a limited time period, you know, because there's still my kids have got beautiful, glorious dark skin and big afros. Like when people imagine Blasian babies, like their pedigrees, they always imagine like light skin and straight silky hair. But my kids have got gloriously dark skin and glorious afros, so they just look like random black kids. Like, no, if they went to London and said they were Japanese, everyone would be like, why are you lying? Why are you always lying?
How does that impact your husband, right? Like, has he experienced any type of like mistreatment or judgment for walking around with these black kids who are his own biologically?
I think a lot of people don't realize that they're his. Like, you know, they're not expecting, because they're like, it's not even like they've got a mixed skin type. Their skin type is exactly the same as mine. Big puffy afros. So I think a lot of people don't realize that they're his until he's like really holding their hands, and they speak perfect Japanese. It's like so funny, so cute. And then they clock on, and then they're like, oh, because it's not what you would expect, even if they were mixed. And also, it's another triggering. I don't even like to use the word triggering, because I'm kind of laid back, nothing really bothers me. Okay. But a triggering thing for me is they have got these gorgeous dark afros and skin, which is just delicious and lovely. And actually it was funny, because it was an Asian girl who actually used the word glorious about my kids' hair. Okay. And I never heard that at home, because this goes into colorism, where a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, Blasian babies, right? Blasian, black and Asian, Blasian. Yeah. And my kids, when they were born, they were twins and they were premature. So they were white. Like, we're talking like, do you know, like, you know, the Matrix, when they're in the little shell things?
Yeah.
They come out the embryotic fluid. So they're really white, isn't it? Because, you know, and so they were like really, really white because they were premature, even though that might not make sense. But
no, I get it.
Yeah. And they had really silky straight hair. So everyone was gassed up, because they were like, yeah, oh my God, this is so cool. And I was just happy they were alive and healthy, you know.
As you should.
Right.
I want to get into something that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like how women kind of shut down sexually with their husbands after.
You want to talk about the good stuff, do you?
No, it's not even. No. I'm going somewhere. It's not necessarily about sex per se.
Yeah.
Right. I want to know if any of that has any reflection on what it's like to be a woman in Japan, especially like marriage and relationships? Like what is the dynamic like between men and women, especially in relationships in Japan? And what does it mean to be a woman in Japan?
As an outsider looking in, I would say that to be a woman in Japan, it's all about roles. Everyone fulfills a role. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So it's very normal for a woman to be a housewife. That's not to say that everyone is a housewife. And of course, there's nothing wrong with being a housewife. Or we call it housewife. Maybe you guys call it homemaker.
Sure.
So it's very normal for a Japanese woman to be a homemaker. But that's not to say everyone is. But it's that role of you're the wife. You cook, you clean, you look after the household. And you look after the kids. And the kids, they have to be hyper good. It's normal at 3 years old. The kids do exams at 5 years old to get into 5 years old to get into a private school.
Yeah.
So there are kids out there that are going to these, like cramming, studying so hard to get into a private school at 5 years old. Yeah. So you need to have a mother that's on point, and one can get into that cramming school because that's got etiquette. So not everyone can get into it. So she's got to be on point. So everything is about being on point. So it's a lot of pressure. It's not just you're a mum and end of story. It's a lot of pressure. So when you have this, you have to deal with the pressure. You have to compartmentalize. This is the way I'm looking at it, and put yourself into certain roles. So there's not time for everything to start overlapping. And the husband goes out, he works. There's a thing called and they work to the point where it's just ridiculous. So there's a thing called karoshi, I think, if I'm saying it right, and it's death by overworking, and it's not seen as something that's strange. It's like, oh, he just died from overworking. Oh, okay. And the thing about that is, after you're in the office, what they do is, if I'm getting it right, I might be confusing it, because in Shanghai they did something similar. It was where you actually sign the contracts but I think in Japan they're very formal, so they probably do it in the office, but then they go out to drink with the client, and then the client either enjoys the fact that they sign the contract and it builds a better harmony, or they sign the contracts when they're out drinking. I don't want to conflate it with, because I know in Shanghai they like to do the contracts when they're out drinking, because it's like a friendship. If you do it in the boardroom, it's seen like kind of formal, but if you do it when you're out, and again, this is not everyone, this is a kind of generalization, but what I'm trying to say is there's an element of drinking with the client to create a harmony, to create a friendship.
Yeah. And
so the husband will come home at 11 o'clock at night, 12, 1, and this might be on a Wednesday night, like on a random Wednesday night.
Yeah.
So how can you get turned on by you've been with the kids all day and your husband's coming in at like 2 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
And then you've had to make, because they make beautiful elaborate meals, and you've had to make the elaborate meals, and then you've got to go to this crazy etiquette lesson tomorrow. And so that's where also a lot of tension comes in. The funny thing is, women keep all the money of the household.
What does that mean?
So women get all their husband's salary and they pay them pocket money.
They pay their husband pocket money.
Yeah.
Look at you.
No, my husband doesn't play those games. He's like mute.
I like your husband. He seems like he's on point. Like he's like, yo, I'm not like these others here. He's like, I'm hung like a horse. Treat me as such. All right, that's what he's saying.
He's what we call in England a geezer. Like he's just a sound. He's a cool guy. That's why I liked him, because it was cool. But that's the norm. That's very normal. In fact, they have in the dollar store, they've got a housekeeping book where you can put in all your thing, because she takes the money, but of course she does like the all the bills and stuff.
Yeah.
But these women are wearing some Gucci. They're wearing they're making sure they look good as well. So they're getting something.
So, but what is the perspective on women? Do women feel like they have like equal footing in society, or do you feel like the women take a step back because of like tradition and the cultural expectations?
What I would say is there's this ideal that the women are very docile.
In Japan?
Mm, they're very reserved to the outside world, but when the door shuts, it's like any country, the door shuts, that's when they can go bah, 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 if they want to, if that's the way they're inclined to be. So I think in Japan it's very hard for the women, but it's also hard for everyone because, for example, in the workplace, you can't get higher than someone who's older than you. So if you...
Is that a woman thing or is that just any person?
Sorry, that's a workplace thing. Okay. So you can't get higher than someone who's older than you, but it's very much a structure. So it's so everyone is feeling the pressure of you're in your confines of what you're allocated, of what life allocates you. You know, it's very hard to get out of a certain role. And I think for women, that's always all over the world. It's been very hard because as a woman, we're always stuck in a role. And then add on top of that, if you go to the workplace and you're stuck in a role where you can't get higher than the person before you, and then there's always naturally things like workplace bullying,
Workplace bullying?
No, in general.
Okay.
And in every country. So I think in Japan, it might feel more intense because there's a hierarchy of, you know, that someone is definitely above you. You can't give back chat to someone who's older than you.
But is it about how old they are, or is it about how long they've been in the company?
Age and how long they've been, but you've got to understand.
So if I was in a company in Japan, if I worked in a corporate structure in Japan, and I'm however old I am, and I've been with the company for 5 years, I have some level of seniority as a 5-year person. But then let's say they hire someone who's 5 years older than me, but just started with the company. Do they? Am I their senior, or are they my senior because they're older than me?
That's a good question. I can't, but the thing is, it would be strange for them to take orders from you. I can't see a way in which it would work where they'll take orders from you. So I don't know how that would work. But the thing is, it doesn't work in the way we think it is because it's not an open door system. You see what I mean? Normally, when they graduate from university, they go into the workplace. Actually, I know what I'm going to say. They go into the workplace and that's their job for life, more or less.
Oh, okay.
And also, it's not a case of you work in marketing and then you work in sales and then you work in another division and that's just your role. You're a marketer and you work in marketing. No, in Japan, they'll rotate.
Yeah.
So people will be on... So people will have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So there's no way for you to actually be someone who's older than you.
And more experience.
No, because they've all had a little bit. Because remember, you're not really dibbling and dabbling into 2 different jobs. Yeah. If you have more than 3 jobs on your resume, you're a bit strange.
Yeah. Okay.
It's more like a job for life. Again, everything's changing, and it's not necessarily like this totally. But when you go to a job, it tends to be more of a job for life, especially if you're working for a big famous organization.
Okay. But what does that mean for women? What does that mean for women though?
Oh, so for women, it's very hard because if I'm honest, there's a thing called the OL, and the OL is the office lady, and it's the woman that's expected to be in the office until she gets married. Really? So, and this is, again, not everyone and not every situation. There's many successful and diverse and women. So I don't want to put any woman down and say, you know, the women in Japan can't achieve and the women in Japan haven't achieved amazing things. But there is this OL, office lady, and then she goes and she gets married and then she becomes the housewife. And then to get into the office after that is very, very difficult. And then when you look at childcare also, a lot of the childcare depends on the mother being there. Like there's lots of events and there's lots of sports events, and it's very much, and you know, like on certain days the kindergarten will just close. Do you see what I mean? So it makes it even harder for a woman to be in the workplace, because where are you getting the support for looking after the kids? Now there are after school and there are long-term kindergartens, but even they are difficult to get into. So there's also this problem of being able to get into a kindergarten and being able to get into a long-term kindergarten. So finally, what I'm trying to say is it's very hard for a woman who's a full-time worker to work in the system, because there's nothing that's really pulling you and saying, come, we want you. There's more things, factors pushing you than saying it's, you know?
I've heard, when I was in Japan, I spoke to this woman who basically told me that once a woman in the workplace, who will often meet her husband in the workplace, I was told, right? Yeah. Once she gets married, it's considered embarrassing or disrespectful to the husband if she does go back to work. It's the implication that he's not able to take care of the family and she's now still working. So what was the point of her getting married? Like that was the perspective of a woman who lived in Japan, who was Japanese. That's what she told me. Do you feel like that's the same thing?
I think it's the same thing, because unless you've got a profession, like you're in the media or you're in something kind of edgy, it's like, why would you carry on working? You know, it's like, it's just seen on, because again, work here is seen as, there's two types of work. There's working in industry and there's working for your family. So a family business, and it's beautiful because I have like these lineages that have gone on for so long, and it'll be in the most obscure things like tofu making. And like there was this guy who wanted to be an accountant, but his family made tofu, so he had to get up early at 9 o'clock, well, not 9 o'clock in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and make tofu. And tofu, you got to put your hands in there and the water and everything. But because it was a lineage, so if there's a family business, then that's a family business, but everyone else looks at working in a corporation, it's because you need money, basically. Let's keep it real. So that's why I can see why people would look at it like you don't have enough money, because here there's still, like I said before, it's still normal to be a homemaker, very, very normal. You know, and it's more, it's not the right grammar, more unnormal. It's seen as less normal to work unless you're in like, I'm a TV
family
director.
Business.
Or,
Yeah,
like it's a family business, or you're in something that's kind of edgy, like I'm the magazine editor, and you're like, oh yeah, I can understand why you'd want to keep that. You know? It has to be
got it. Meaning like, why would taking care of your kids and take care of your home be less important than working this corporate job where you're doing sales and you're answering calls and stuff like that? They're like, go do the home thing that is supposed to be more rewarding or something like that, or at least also, more challenging in some ways.
And then also you have to look at it like, it's very hard, because even like they have the PTA, Parent Teachers Association, but in Japan it's like hardcore full-time job. Like they take that ish seriously. And so if there's just so many things that is, well, on Monday the school's going to close. You know, or you know, it's just like and it's just, well, you can pick up the kids because you're a housewife. You know, it's that expectation. So it's very hard for a working woman, because there's that expectation of, but you will be there, right?
But are there such thing as like other caretakers, like nannies and babysitters and stuff like that? Culturally, is that acceptable?
If I'm honest, having a nanny and adoption, even things like adoption and nannies are kind of taboo.
Really?
I might be wrong in the nanny situation, but I've never, unless you're an expat darling, like some foreigner, then you might have a nanny. But no.
So what's your situation as a Black woman who moved to Japan, married a Japanese man, raising 2 twin beautiful boys? What's your experience like, given that you also have the culture of where you're from and now the culture of where you now reside, which is in Japan? What's that situation like? Are you getting nannies? Are you the PTA housewife? Huh?
No, because at the moment I'm a presenter on a TV show in Japan.
Oh, that's what's up.
I'm not sure if I'm at liberty to say which one, but it's a famous one. It's for a famous channel. It's international all over the world.
Okay.
So sometimes my mum gets to see me because they've got an international Japanese channel that's shown all over the world. And so my mum watches it. And it's about a show about the interesting things that are in Japan. And then I'll go and I'll talk about the interesting things that are in Japan. So I'm the representative for the UK, but there are other representatives as well, but I'm one of them. And yeah.
So this podcast interview is well within your wheelhouse.
Yeah, but this is more laid back because,
Good.
I can't be like, well, my husband.
He's hung.
Allegedly.
Okay.
And,
so given that I would say you're a career woman, if you have that responsibility.
And then also my kids are huge, absolutely huge models. So, and when I say models, and this is no offense to anyone who's like an Instagram, like their kids do Instagram or something like that. Literally, you'll walk in a store in Japan and there'll be a poster of my kids there. And
really?
it's wild. Yeah. All the brands that you wear, darling, my kids have modeled for mostly. Yeah.
Wow.
I can say that. Yeah. And I can't say the brands again because I can't bring up.
But these are Japanese brands?
International brands, my darling.
International brands, my darling. But of course.
You know what's so nice? But this is, and I hope this gets seen by someone. This is what's so beautiful is I was told I couldn't have kids, and I've got a condition called endometriosis.
Okay.
And it is very, very painful, and it means that it's the number one. I think it's the number one reason why most people can't have kids.
Okay.
And I remember this surgeon saying to me I had to have an operation, and there was like it's not very nice. There was like a lump on an ovary, on an ovary.
Yeah.
That's what they look like. And he said, and my doctor's super sweet, and he was like, because my doctor and I kind of grew up together, if that makes sense, because when I was a teenager, he just ended up going into his practice.
Yeah.
So he saw me grow up, and so he sent me to the best specialist for my condition in the UK. And this surgeon just comes in and he goes, I want to cut off your ovary. And I said, no, are you crazy? And he says, well, it doesn't work anyway. And I said, no. And I wrote in my notes, you must not cut this ovary off. And he got so mad, he stormed out the room.
Wow.
And and I had the surgery. I don't know if they cut it. At the time, I didn't know. And, we got married and I couldn't have kids. And in Asia, I'm crying, laughing.
Wait, you got married and it was expected that you weren't going to have kids and your husband knew that?
So when I met my husband and when he said we were going to get engaged, so as not to trap him, I said, come to the doctor with me. And because we used to come to the doctor with me, and I want you to hear about the condition that I have and that I might not be able to have kids.
Oh.
Putting it out there, like, boys got to know, right?
Yeah.
And he was just like, he was very optimistic, but he absolutely adores kids, which is one of the things that made me like him. So it was kind of like this really tough situation to be in. And I'm not going to lie, it was really hard because we're trying, like I said about my guy. You're
good at the practice.
And nothing was happening. And during this time, my dad was being up and down. And we've come to like a resolution now. After when you've got grandkids, everyone becomes a bit normal. But it was just a very, very difficult time, if I'm honest. And people in Asia were direct. Like we were in Shanghai at one point, and they're just so blatant. And they're like, "Why don't you just get a new wife?" Like, this one's broken. Yeah, because it's just very practical. You have a lineage. You have this lineage, and he was the eldest, and it wasn't his parents. His parents didn't put any pressure. His parents were beautiful, but it was. From other people, they're very direct. Like, if this one's broken, get a new one. Like, what is the problem? Like, I'm not, again, I don't want to generalize and say this is everyone, but it's very much practical. Yeah. You have to continue a lineage. So why would you carry on with someone who's broken? And it was a very tough time. And I'm not going to lie, you know, I went through it, and it was even kind of making me distance from him because I was feeling like this is not fair. He deserves more.
Yeah.
And I was doing karate. And I didn't want to take it up because with endometriosis, your periods are irregular, so you never necessarily know when you're pregnant. So that also made me not be a naughty girl and be around like before I got with my husband, because you know what I mean? You never know. I'd be like I got pregnant and I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when there's those women who like give birth in the loo or the loo in the toilet because they don't know they're pregnant, kind of thing. Because you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't know.
How do you not know you're pregnant and you give birth?
I'm not saying that would have happened to me, but I mean, I wouldn't have got an early warning call. Does that if my lady time didn't come, I wouldn't. It would just be like, oh well, happens, isn't it?
I got you know,
because that's how irregular. Because irregular. Going into grim details, but so my karate teacher was like, why don't you have kids? Like in Shanghai, they've got no chill. And I was like, oh, because fertility problems. And he was like, nah. And I was like, what do you mean nah? And he was like, nah. And I was like, what? And he said, how do you imagine your womb? And I was like, easy, tiger. Like, come on yourself.
I want to imagine your womb.
And he was like, how do you imagine it? And I was like, a barren wasteland with camels and like that straw. You know, and he was like, no, put your hands on your stomach. And he was like, imagine it as a fertile green lush valley kind of thing. And I promise you, it felt really warm. Like he was just like, imagine that energy there. And he was just telling me to like visualize, you know, life basically. And I prayed a lot. And if not everyone, I know not everyone's into prayer, people can meditate, whatever they want to, just to calm themselves, because when you're stressed, that also affects endometriosis. I prayed a lot, like probably on my knees, God, why? At first my prayers were like, God, why? But then after, it was just like more calm. I just said, God, I give it to you, and I go on with my life. Like, because I was holding on to it so tight. I want to have kids, Yeah. I just said, I give it to you. I started loving on myself. I started drinking green tea. I started taking really, really potent vitamins, and you know, and also Chinese herbs and stuff like that. And the reason why I say this is not to be like airy fairy woo woo, but just to say that a lot of people might want something, but they don't take the steps to just love on their body. I'm not saying you do this and you can get pregnant, but I'm just saying love on your body sometimes. Just say to yourself, I love you, body. I'm grateful for you. You know what I mean? And this is going to sound woo-woo, but I think the body can hear you, because when you're looking at something and you're getting turned on, I mean, the body can hear you. So when you're telling yourself so much negativity, the body can hear you as well. And I think for me, what was also key was just letting go, because I was holding on so tight. And then we got pregnant. And I know.
Good job.
And to add on to it, it was twins. Like, it was wild. And what was so funny is I went to see my midwife, and she just slid this piece of paper across the table. And I was like, what's this? And it was my, like, I think it was when I was 18, my 18-year-old self, and the note that I'd written to the doctor saying, do not cut off my ovary. And it was still in my books, because it's in the medical books. It was because I literally wrote it on, you have a consent form for surgery, and I wrote it on the consent form. So it was literally on official paper. It was on the consent form. Wow. I'd written it in the notes, and
do not cut
and
my
it was
ovaries.
It was just like myself then had helped myself now. Do you know what I mean? And it was just such a poignant moment that you don't know what you're leading yourself up. Are you thinking, what is yourself 10 years from now going to think of you? You know what I mean? And it was just so poignant. And we went on to have twins. So big full circle. But because I've got these twin boys, when and they've got the big, beautiful, glorious afros. When my husband's out with them, people are just amazed and they're like, oh my gosh, these kids are so cute. And they love my kids. And they do that, they want to touch it, but more for them if they touch it, because that's a lot of coconut oil and stuff they're going to get on it.
Yeah.
When they'll literally be like, you're beautiful, you're cute, and they'll love on my kids. And it's so sad because when I go to, of course, my family love my kids, but when I meet, let's say, other Black people from my culture, and they'll see my kids, they'll be like, that's a shame, they ain't got the silky hair. So it's so strange that I've got, exactly, so it's so strange that I've got Japanese people loving. And again, I'm not saying they're perfect. I want to be very clear. I'm not under any illusion that they're perfect, but they'll be saying all these praise about my kids and, oh, they're cute and the hair is amazing. And remember, I told you it was an Asian friend who taught me the word. Obviously, I knew the word glorious, but in conjunction with my kids, she was the one who was like, the hair is glorious. And I was like, easy, tiger, with the big words. You know? And she said it like, glorious. And then you go to, when I'm in the UK, they're like, oh man, you got to have something for that hair. Like, obviously, I look after my kids' hair, smell my kids' hair, it smells beautiful, gorgeous. But when I go to the UK, no one's like, your kids' hair smells divine. They're like, they're mixed. You know, it's
that's a shame because it kind of speaks to the fact that, like, in the UK or anywhere in the Western world, like, especially if, you know, Black people's hair is such a commodity, that there's this culture of people who want to emulate what they think is beautiful. Right? What they think is beautiful. And if it's straight hair, they're like, oh, I wish my kid had straight hair, versus like if you go to Japan, straight hair is a commodity. Right. And then when you see something that's different, you're like, this is exotic. This is something that's beautiful because it's different. So you were able to experience it from that lens. And I think that's fascinating. And I thoroughly appreciate the fact that you were able to, like, remember and articulate, like, a lot of these experiences, because I think a lot of people don't understand the difference of how they're treated could be a reflection of their environment, not necessarily a reflection of who they are. You know what I mean? And your story and the amount of things that you've gone through and experienced is a big reflection of that. And I thank you for that. I thank you for that.
I thank you. Yeah, and I'm a hypocrite in myself because I like my hair straight, or I like my hair like this. And I'm in Japan, so I do many, many different styles. I've had my hair all different colors and everything. But at the end of the day, to hear someone say that Afro hair is not beautiful. And again, I say that super hypocritically because look at me now. But just to hear someone say that about your own children, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing, you know. It's a weird thing.
Did that have an emotional impact on you?
Just made me want to protect them. And the afros just get bigger and bigger each day. You know, but I'd gone through the brainwashing because at 7, I think I'd say about 7, 8, I got my hair relaxed. And I know everyone's like, I'm mixed with Indians. You know, it's like the thing, like to say that they're mixed with someone. But my mum's dad was indigenous to the Caribbean. I think they say called Arawak, you know, and he was indigenous. Like, it was what it was. Like, it's not like in the UK we say beg, like I want to beg that I've got indigenous. He was. So my mum, when I emulate anyone, I emulate my mum, because when I grew up, my mum always had this gorgeous hair that was just like, I can't explain it, like her Supreme, like, you know, the Supremes. So anytime I have a look, I want to emulate my mother. And I like that style. So for me, I find it difficult when I hear people of my own culture just want the kid to be lighter or want the hair to be straighter, and it's a child. If you're a big woman, do what you want, like, you know what I mean? But when they're children, it just seems sad that that people want them to be kind of like pedigrees.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say to me, oh, I want a Blasian baby. And this is where it gets tricky and scary, because they don't want a kid that looks like my kid. Or there's a basketball player called Rui Hachimura. He's got a beautiful ebony skin. They don't want someone like that. They want someone who's light skin and silky hair. Yeah. So what happens to that child when that child doesn't come out like that? But you've had a mum and a dad who expect that.
Oh,
that's where it gets scary. And I know that, again, and not everyone, I've met some fabulous Japanese women. It's funny because you meet the most conservative Japanese women, but they've got a black guy, and it's like they look so prim and proper, and they've got like a black husband.
In Japan?
It's just like, in Japan, because there's a lot of air forces here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of air bases, and there's a lot of men from different countries in Africa that have come over, and, you know, gift of the gab, you know, the men. Slip through it. And but it's just very funny because you meet this guy who's like so like prim and proper, and then the guy is just like so cool. But anyway, so I've met some women out here who are just on point, like Japanese mums. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you mix Japanese and black, the kids just normally come out looking black. They don't necessarily come out looking mixed.
It's about which has the strongest gene.
I
right?
think
The strongest
so.
gene will dominate the embryo.
It really dominates to the point where you wouldn't even know that their mum is mixed. So sometimes I go on auditions with the boys, and I see these gorgeous dark-skinned girls, and then you see the mum. And even for me, even though I've got mixed kids, I'm like, whoa, I wasn't expecting, because they might not necessarily have a mixed look. That's what I'm trying to convey. They just like look like regular, you know, black kids. And but I've heard stories of, like, I've met some amazing mums who've gone so far. They've trained how to do what we call cane row or corn row, what you guys would say.
Okay.
They've trained how to do that. They've trained how to do the plaits. They're on point. And you've got other mums where I've had stories of where they'll shave the kid's hair, not for cultural ceremonial reasons, but because they want it to grow back straight.
Wow.
And I'll put a little bit of something in the lotion to try to make the kids a little bit lighter.
Where are they doing this at? Where are they doing this?
In Japan. But not everyone, like I said, not everyone. But some mums, because they weren't expecting this gloriously dark baby. They might have expected, like,
I like how you're normalizing the word glorious. I like it.
I know, I'm a bit obsessed with that word. But they might have expected like a Mariah Carey, or, you know, like, I don't know what to say. But they were expecting, like, you know, but they might not have been expecting.
I got you. Let's okay, because we're running short on time here. And as I said before, the amount of stories that you shared on this show, I'm thoroughly thankful and grateful for the amount that you shared. You're very candid, and you're a great person to interview. I mean that sincerely.
Okay, thank you, my darling.
Yeah. And I'm flabbergasted by the amount of, like, nuances that come with someone that had your experience, especially given, you know, how much experience you had in so many other places, including where you're at now as a Japanese. I would consider you a Japanese woman in the sense of that's your current nationality, in a sense, right? Because, like, that's the culture.
Can I just tell you one thing about Japan that's wild, right?
What's up?
And this is what's gonna affect me when I go back. They'll be in McDonald's, and they'll put their bag on the chair to guard it. They'll put their iPhone. I remember when we got married, they put this guy beside us put his iPhone, his MacBook, and something else, Apple, on the table in a normal, we call it a restaurant, but it's not. It's like a Denny's or whatever. Yeah. Just put it on the table, and he went, and we never realized he'd gone. He just left everything there. What's going on? And we had to leave for our appointment, but my mum was freaking out. She was like, we can't go. He's left his stuff. We can't go. You know? And I think part of that is, like, if it gets nicked, they're going to think it's us. If it gets taken.
Oh, wow.
these are the things that other people don't think of. But also we were like, the guy comes black, it's a black guy. I'm like, really, bruv? Really?
What do you
really? Like, you turn that green, like, what happened? Like,
oh, because
I'm
like
worried that might happen to me. I'll just
because
be there with my little handbag.
Because there's no theft in Japan, really.
Exactly. People literally leave their bags. It's the wildest thing.
Let me ask you a question before
in McDonald's.
Let me ask you a question before we take off. What is the courtship like? Because I know you got married to and got engaged before you really moved to Japan. What is courtship like in Japan, and as opposed to like in the UK?
I think Tinder's messed it up a lot because now there's a lot of F-boys. Like, people are starting to
wait. You saying Tinder created a lot of F-boys?
Yeah, people are starting to fool themselves, isn't it? Because I'm in groups where I hear like the stories, but what's cute is the fact that they're very proactive. So they'll have a lot of parties where it's a drinking party, but it's for singles.
Yeah.
So it's like group parties, but everyone acknowledges that they're single.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those kind of parties where you can meet someone. There's a lot of meeting at work. So if you're strategic, like a lot of like where my kids go, a lot of the mothers there are nurses and the husbands are doctors. You know, that kind of like strategic.
Yeah.
And but one of the nicest things is, and I have to get this right, is because I think I might get it wrong, but the men, if they want you to marry them, they'll say, can you make my breakfast? No, can you make my breakfast every morning? That's it. Can you make my breakfast every morning? That might have been from a drama, so don't quote me. But it's something like that. It's like, can you make my breakfast every morning? So
a man saying, can you make my breakfast every morning is a sign of a proposal? Mm-hmm. How soon would he be saying that? Oh my God,
I've got to tell you this story. This is so funny. So, how soon?
Yeah. How soon into the relationship would he ask that?
Well, I think once you've met the parents.
Got it.
It's not like, you know, but in Japan, it's not like, you know, in England, they've got all the dramas where they're like, if anyone objects and you stop the marriage, right? But in Japan, it's not like that. You literally, you know, where you do your like tax, your driving license, whatever, that's where you get married. Yeah. But you can just fill out the form and just hand it in and they're like, okay, you're married now.
Yeah.
So we went and I'm wearing something a little bit nice, not too nice, but a little bit nice. And there's this like old lady beside me trying to do her tax form and they're like, number 52. And it was like the most unromantic thing ever. And they gave us the form, but it was kind of, had little like dragony things on it. So it was kind of cute. And that was it. Okay. So after, we come out of the office, we're married. And we come out of the office, it wasn't like there's no flowers. It's literally like a DVLA.
Yeah.
No, DMV. It's kind of like a DMV vibe. That's what I'm trying to get at. And we come out and he's like, oh, I'm hungry. And I was like, yeah, I'm hungry too. And I was like, there's a KFC down the road. And I was like, yeah, to be fair. Yeah. So we had our honeymoon in Kentucky Fried Chicken.
I like it. But
we did have a big blowout wedding later on. But it just means that you're not married on the exact day that you have your wedding.
That makes sense. Like the wedding is just a celebration of what you already decided to do, what you already did, versus the wedding is the union, which is how it is in a lot of relationships here.
And I had on a wedding dress and then I did kimono and they asked me if I wanted to get a priest and I was like, we've got our own priest. And they were like, no, we could get this Russian guy who was an actor. He could act as a priest because a lot of people like the pomp and ceremony of a Western wedding, but they don't like the Christianity side of it. So we didn't get the fake.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Listen, Liza, this has been quite an interesting conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
I thoroughly appreciate it, and I think my audience is gonna learn a lot from your experience. I certainly did. What's the best way for people to reach out to you if you want to connect with people?
To the number 2, Posh, Posh, 2, the number 2 again, Push. Okay. And I've got a YouTube channel called Liza in Japan.
Oh,
so
right
Liza in Japan.
Okay, right on. Yeah. My name is Jeff Damisse. You can reach me at j.damisse on IG or j_damisse on Twitter. For the Introspect Club podcast, you can reach us at Introspect_Club. That's everywhere. That's IG, that's Twitter, Clubhouse, Patreon, you name it. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you guys have any questions you want me to answer with my guests on the show, please DM me. And if you are a unique person like Liza here, who has an extraordinary story and live a very interesting life, and you could be part of the conversations we have on this podcast, we can possibly bring you on. So make sure you DM me on that. And if you guys thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, please make sure you like, subscribe, you comment, and you share this content, because that's the only way we're going to grow. The amount that you learn and experience here, imagine how great it would be to experience it with others. So, Liza, thank you so much for being part of this conversation.
Thank you so much.
And
I just need to clarify, everything I said was a generalization, guys. Don't come to me in the comments going, that's not me.
Listen, the internet's going to do its thing, but I'm going to make sure you're defended regardless. But I don't think you shared anything that would have been alarming in that sense. But thank you so much.
Thank you. It was lovely.
Until next time.
Till next time. Bye.